Hello everyone, how are you all? I hope you all are doing fine. So today we will be doing your chapter number 3 of your SST. The name of the chapter is The Sultans of Delhi. The defeat of now we will be revising the history first, what happened earlier, which we have already done in chapter number 2. The defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan at the hands of Muhammad Ghori in 1192 AD put an end to the Hindu rule and paved the way for the Muslim rule in North India. Muhammad Ghori's rule extended from Afghanistan in the west to Varanasi in the east. Ghori made Qutbuddin Aibak the governor of all the conquered territories and returned home. In 1206 AD, Ghori was murdered and Qutbuddin Aibak became the independent ruler of Ghori's territories. The Sultanate period. This is from 1206 to 1526 AD. During this period, there are total 5 dynasties: the Slave, Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyid, and Lodi. We are going to study about these 5 dynasties today. Number 1, the Slave dynasty. The time period of this dynasty is from 1206 to 1290 AD. Qutbuddin Aibak was the founder of the Slave dynasty, also called Mamluk dynasty. They were called slave kings because 3 sultans of this dynasty were themselves slaves who had risen to power due to their merit, skills, and abilities. Aibak ruled for 4 years only. He was a generous ruler and gave large sum of money to both Hindus and Muslims, for which he earned the title of Lal Baksh. Iltutmish succeeded Qutbuddin. He is regarded as the real architect of the Muslim rule in India. He suppressed revolts and consolidated his empire. He also saved his kingdom from the wrath of Mongol invader Genghis Khan. He organized the Chalisa, the 40 noble, and introduced coin currency. Razia was the successor of the Iltutmish. She was the first and the last Muslim woman. She ruled efficiently throughout, but for the short period of time. Razia's successors were weak rulers. Ghiasuddin Balban was loyal slave of Iltutmish and a member of Chalisa. He ruled for 25 years. He is known for the policy of blood and iron. He crushed the power of Chalisa and defended his kingdom from the Mongol invasion. Then next comes the Khalji dynasty, which is from 1290 to 1321 AD. After the slave Sultan, Khalji got the throne. This dynasty was founded by Jalaluddin Khalji. He was a kind person, but he could not suppress revolts and lawlessness. His nephew and son-in-law, Alauddin Khalji, murdered him. Alauddin Khalji, he was a genius when it comes to military. He followed the policy of defense against Mongol invasion, and then he adopted the policy of expansion. He conquered the kingdom of Gujarat, Malwa, and Rajasthan. He heard of a beautiful queen, Padmini, wife of Rana Ratan Singh of Chittor. So he attacked Chittor, but Queen Padmini and other Rajput women, they performed Johar. They went into the fire. Having conquered North India, Alauddin sent his army, led by his general Malik Kafur, to conquer South India. The Yadavas, Kakatiyas, Hoysalas were defeated. As an able and efficient administrator, Alauddin took several measures for the consolidation of his empire. He made several reforms in revenue system and introduced various taxes. He also began the market control system and introduced an efficient postal system to have contact and communication with distant parts of his empire. Next comes Tughlaq dynasty from 1321 to 1413 AD. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, he founded this dynasty. He was very liberal. He was very liberal, but what happened? He wanted to take care of everything, so he took care of public welfare also. And in that, because of that, he constructed a lot of gardens, canals, forts, and he built the city of Tughlaqabad near Delhi. But unfortunately, he died early, and then his son got the throne. But his son was a strange man. Some historians call him a mixture of opposite, and some call him the wisest fool, because he wanted to do a lot, but everything changed drastically. Everything actually turned into a disaster. Whatever he did, everything turned into a disaster. The Sultan had several other visionary plans, but all the visionary plans proved quite disaster to himself, not only to himself, but also to his empire. In order to, so after his death, his cousin Firoz Tughlaq got the throne, and he introduced many reforms in administration. He increased the salary of his officers also. In order to encourage agriculture, he paid a lot of attention to irrigation. He founded the towns of Firozabad, Fatehbad, Hisar, Jaunpur, and Firozpur. He abolished the practice of torture on criminals. Firoz had a passion of procuring slaves. He had 1.80 lakhs slaves who were trained in different skills. His army was well organized. He had soldiers who used to receive grants, while temporary soldiers used to receive cash. His army was consisted of 80 to 90,000 cattle. But his successors were weak, and that is why his states became independent afterwards. Next comes Sayyid dynasty from 1414 to 1451 AD. Khizr Khan, he actually founded this dynasty, and he led several military expeditions to suppress revolt against him. Within no time, he emerged as the most powerful ruler. Mubarak Shah succeeded his father Khizr Khan. He was unpopular among his nobles who plotted his murder. His successors were indolent and pleasure-seeking. Alam Shah, the last Sayyid ruler, voluntarily gave away his throne to Bahol Lodi, and then this Lodi dynasty came from 1451 to 1526 AD. The Lodi dynasty was founded by Behlol Lodi. This dynasty lasted for 75 years. He spent almost all of his time in fighting only. That is why he had little time for civil administration. His son Sikandar crushed all the revolts. He founded the city Agra, and then he shifted from Delhi to Agra. Ibrahim Lodi succeeded his father Sikandar Lodi. His forces were defeated by Rana Sanga, the ruler of Mewar. Ibrahim Lodi was defeated and killed by Babur in the first battle of Panipat in 1526, while with his fall, the Delhi Sultanate came to an end. Now, how was the art and architecture at that time? The Turks were great genius in architecture. They brought art of Western and Central Asia. The Sultans employed Indian craftsmen for designing and constructing their buildings, which gave rise to Indo-Islamic style of architecture. Qutub complex built by Qutubuddin and Iltutmish is the most significant structure in Delhi. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq built the city of Tughlaqabad in Firoz Shah Tughlaq, which we have already discussed previously. Most of the earlier buildings of the Sultanate period lacked correct proportions. They were made of bricks and stones. This was the negative point in their art and architecture. This was the drawback. The monuments lacked grace. Calligraphy was used to decorate the buildings. Excerpts from Quran were engraved on the walls of the building. Now, what were the reasons of the downfall of Delhi Sultanate? The Sultan of Delhi had conquered India by sword, and they ruled the country by sword, but nobody loved sword. This is the main reason. Most of the sultans were intolerant towards the Hindus. The Hindus were ill-treated by them. Most of the sultans were weak and pleasure-loving rulers. Most of the sultans depended on the army of their nobles. They had a vast empire, but they never bothered to improve their transportation, good transportation and communication, which was their huge drawback. There was no definite law of succession. There were frequent wars in the country. The invasion of the Mongols also weakened the empire. Now, what were the developments at that time? The Sultanate of Delhi was theocracy. Islam was the state religion. The Sultan was the head of the Delhi Sultanate and commander of the army. He was recognized as the supreme interpreter of the law. And he was assisted in administration by a number of ministers. So there are these few ministers, examples of few ministers. The provincial government reflected the same setup as the center. The head of the provinces were known as Wali and Mufti. Strategies of military control. The Sultan's army included various tribes and races, example, the Turks, Tajiks, Persian, Mongols, Arabs, Afghans, the Indians, and the Indian Muslims. The army consisted of the cavalry, infantry, and elephantry. The cavalry formed the backbone of the military establishment. The foot soldiers, mostly the Hindus and the slaves, were called payats, the archers called the dhanuks. The Sultan was the commander-in-chief of his forces. The military officers were paid by land grants, while the individual troops were paid in cash. The royal court was generally a part of the royal place. The Sultan ruled with the help of nobles. Iltutmish set up a Chalisa, a team of 40 influential Turkish nobles. Now, if we'll talk about land control, the revenue was the main source of income during this period. Land was divided into Khalisa territory, Iktas, principalities of the Hindu chiefs, and the land given to the Muslim saints and scholars. Hindu Rajas were required to pay tribute, and also Zamindars were also used to pay fixed revenue to the government. If you talk about resource and mobilization, the Sultan took several measures to increase their revenue resources, which include these five. Other sources of income were import they used to impose taxes on the imports like horses, house tax, grazing tax, water tax, everything. There was tax on everything. And also the sultans, whatever presents or gifts they used to get, this was also part of their income. Thank you so much. I hope you all have understood this. Try to read everything and understand everything. Thank you. Go through each and everything, you will be able to understand. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.